بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. Welcome everybody, alhamdulillah. This is going into our second month. Assalamu alaikum, bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah amma ba'd. So good night to those of you in the Western Hemisphere. If you're from other parts of the world, good morning to you. Alhamdulillah, we're continuing into our series. So without further ado, I'm sorry for keeping those of you waiting. Tonight is less theory and inshallah it's more practical advice on the reality of tadabbur and how to do tadabbur, reflection of the Quran. So the book I'm reading from is by two contemporary scholars who are very esteemed in Quranic sciences from Al-Azhar University. One is Dr. Ahmed Isa al-Ma'sarawi and the other is Dr. الكريم Salih. So anyhow, it's more like a treatise. It's called التبيان في تدبر القرآن, that, clarifying and enlightening, explaining what is tadabbur, the art of reflecting on the Quran. So the first part of the section tonight is just a linguistic explanation of the word tadabbur. For many of us, we may not be proficient or fluent in Arabic. So yes, tadabbur is an Arabic word, and they explain that يطلق التدبر في لغة العرب ويراد به معاني عدة منها. They said in the Arabic language, tadabbur can have multiple meanings, as many of you are familiar in the Somali language. One word can have multiple meanings. So some Arabic influenced Somali in many ways, although that's not our topic, but just to show a comparison and a similarity, that just as our language has words that have multiple meanings depending on how you use them, Arabic also is like that. So anyway, some of the meanings of التدبر are النظر في عاقبة الأمر والتفكر فيه, that looking at the final outcome of things and contemplating on them. And then as for تدبر الكلام, to contemplate on one's speeches, النظر في أوله وآخره, to look at its first and last, or beginning and end. ثم إعادة النظر مرة بعد أخرى ليستيقنه. And then after looking at the speech from the beginning to the end, a person returns their glance or their focus time and time again until they become fully convinced upon that speech. So anyway, that's just a little linguistic background. There's a little bit more explanation about things that have to do more with morphology and different verb forms of the word, but inshallah we'll skip that. Jazakallah khair. So then this word of tadabbur, when it comes to the Quran, they say that it has very few letters, but it is very deep in meaning. As for tadabbur of the Quran, it is possible that it can have multiple meanings, and it says that the Quran was revealed, فالقرآن الكريم نزل ليفكر فيه المسلم ويفهم معانيه. The Quran was sent down, the noble Quran was sent down, so that the Muslim may reflect on it, as we covered in our section last week, and so that a Muslim may understand its meanings. ويطبقها في حياته مستفيدا من هدايتها. And then when he contemplates on its meanings and understands it, he acts upon it and implements it in his life, so that he may benefit from the guidance of the Quran. And then he says, كما يستفيد من الأرض المستصلحة للزرع, just as I guess you can say, well tilled soil, when it has been properly irrigated, then it can produce much beneficial crops. And they give other examples. Inshallah, we will just stick to the point, because in the last weeks I had the tendency to go far into detail without being able to fully cover what was the topic of the night. So I'm learning from that, trying to adjust. But anyhow, it says that tadabbur in its comprehensive form is بإمعان النظر في القرآن الكريم وفهم مقاصده, is to carefully gaze and observe the verse of the Quran and to understand their objectives. So this is different than tafsir. Tadabbur is different than tafsir, and tadabbur is والسير خلفه وأتباعه. So you basically journey with the Quran and the verses in its kind of like, literally the word tadabbur comes from dubur. Dubur can mean back or also tail. So you come from the end of the verse and then you travel along with it until you can observe what is its subject and topic. واستثماره في تدبير الحياة وعمارة الكون. And then when a person has successfully been able to do tadabbur, they can benefit from its fruits in understanding how Allah explains the detailed structure and organization of life and the creation of the universe, والقيام على شؤون المسلمين, and also how this marvelous, miraculous book, the Quran, helps to gather the affairs of the Muslims, والانطلاق منه في سياسة الأمور والنظر في عواقبها واستثماره في هداية الآخرين. Other benefits of tadabbur is that it helps people have an organization and structure in their life, and it leads them to guidance. So that's just linguistically speaking of tadabbur. Now the technical definition. So whenever you study a science in Islam, there's always mustalahat, terminology, and then from that terminology they will explain it linguistically, and then second they will give a technical definition. So as for the technical definition is هو النظر في عواقب الأمور, is to look at the end result of affairs and things. وهو قريب من التفكر, and it is closely related to contemplation and critical thinking. إلا أن التفكر تصرف القلب بالنظر في الدليل, except the difference between tadabbur and tafakkur. So tadabbur comes from dabbara yudabbiru, and tafakkur fakkara yufakkiru, is to turn. So tafakkur is to turn the heart with gazing for a proof or evidence. والتدبر تصرف بالنظر في العواقب. But tadabbur is different because it is looking simply at the end outcome and final result. Now, what is tadabbur al-Qur'an al-Kareem? What is tadabbur in relation to the Qur'an? It says, وأما تدبر القرآن الكريم فهو تحديق الناظر القلب إلى معانيه وجمع الفكر على تدبره. As for reflecting on the Quran al-Kareem, it is tahdith, to have a sharp, clear gaze of the heart on the meanings of the Quran. وجمع الفكر على تدبره, while also at the same time being, mentally, psychologically present in thinking and using one's faculties on reflecting on the Quran. And they took this definition from the book of Imam Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyya rahimahullah, مدارج السالكين في منازل إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. So I'll repeat again. He says that the tadabbur of the Quran al-Kareem is having very sharp, clear vision of the heart in looking into the meanings of the Quran, while simultaneously gathering one's thoughts on contemplating of the Quran. وتعقله هو المقصود بإنزاله. And one of the objectives of the Quran being revealed is to understand it. As Allah says, قرآن عربيا إنا جعلناه قرآن عربيا لعلكم تعقلون. And then لا مجرد تلاوته بلا فهم ولا تدبر. And they said that the object of the Quran is not simply just, surface level reading without understanding or contemplation, بل إنه الفهم لما يتلى من القرآن الكريم مع حضور القلب وخشوع الجوارح. But the understanding, but one of the goals of the Quran was sent is so that it may be understood, from what is recited from the noble Quran, while the reciter's heart is present and their limbs are submissive and humble before Allah. وَالْعَمَلُ بِمُقْتَضَاهَا. And another goal of the Quran is for it to be acted upon. وصفة ذلك, and a description or example of that is أن يشتغل القلب في التدبر والتفكير في معنى ما يلفظ بلسانه, is that the heart should be focused on contemplating and thinking about the meaning of what their tongue is reciting and uttering. فيعرف من كل آية معناها ولا يجاوزها إلى غيرها حتى يعرف معناها ومرادها. That a person who is reciting the Quran should understand from every verse its meaning, and they should not move from one verse to the next until they understand its meaning and its implied objective, or its derived objective. And then he quotes Al-Hasan al-Basri, the great tabi'i rahimahullah. He said, إِنَّ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ رَأَوُا الْقُرْآنَ رَسَائِلَ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ. He says to the people in his time, imagine he's just one generation after the Prophet ﷺ. He was born in the Khilafah of Umar, and he was even breastfed by the mother of the believers, Salama, as I believe either his mother or his father was a freed slave of hers. And Umar radiallahu anhu himself, he did tahniq. I wish I knew this word in Somali, but tahniq is basically when the newborn is born, if someone close, the parent or grandparent or someone will take moist dates, timir, from their own mouth that they have kind of masticated, and then they put it inside the palate of the mouth of the child. And even if you see nowadays, those of us who are parents, what happens in the delivery room is there's some form of glucose solution put on the lips of the baby, and that helps regulate their blood sugar. So Allah made this a sunnah 1,444 years, 43 years plus before. So anyhow, Umar radiallahu anhu had the honor of doing the tahniq of Hasan al-Basri, and he made dua that Allahumma faqihu fi din wa allimhu ta'wil. I believe was, Allah make him a scholar who understands the religion, a jurist of the religion, and teach him in interpretation. So Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah was a very, very influential member of the Tabi'un, and he was in the early generation who met Sahaba. But he still told the people of his time that there were those before you, meaning the Sahaba, that they saw the Quran as a message from their Lord. فَكَانُوا يَتَدَبَّرُونَهَا بِاللَّيْلِ, that they used to reflect upon it at night. وَيُنَفِّذُونَهَا بِالنَّهَارِ, and they act upon it by day. Another narration we read last week was that they used to examine it by day. The next section says the importance of reflecting on the Quran. And I apologize, I know we covered a lot of this yet in last session and sessions before, but it says that the Quran, the noble Quran, is the book of Allah that is eternal, and it is an address from the heavens to humanity entirely. All of the principles of إليه انتهت أصول الرسالات السماوية, that the Quran is the final revelation from the heavens to the earth, وكمل به الدين الإسلامي, and it has completed the religion of Islam. وهو مصدر عقيدة هذه الأمة. The Quran is the original source for the theology of this ummah. ووعاء أفكارها وقيمها, and it is the vessel that contains the way a believer should think and what they should value. وهو أعظم ما تمتلك الأمة المسلمة من ثروة, بل هو ثروة الإنسانية جميعا. And it is the most valuable possession that this ummah has, and it is a valuable message and gift to the entire ummah, human race. ولهذا وغيره كان التدبر والتفكر في تلاوة القرآن إذ يؤجر المؤمن عليه. So now we're going to something that I wanted to focus on in previous sessions, but it says that we have to know, and these are just my words, but he's saying that when the person reflects on the Quran, they should have the conviction that they are going to be rewarded. The rewarding is not just in reciting the letters, but we get reward for contemplating and reflecting on the book. إن تدبر آيات القرآن الكريم هو وحده الطريق لفتح القلب المغلقة. Another benefit of reflecting on the Quran is that he says on its own, the Quran, reflecting on the verse of the Quran on its own, is sufficient path to open the locked hearts, to open the locked heart. وإزالة الأقفال الصماء بعدها يمكن بالهداية أن تصل إلى قلب المؤمن التالي للقرآن الكريم. And removing the locks and the hardness of the heart, it will lead one to guidance that will reach to the heart of the believer who recites the noble Quran. وعنده يشع نوره ليجل الظلمات الآخرين في كل ميادين الحياة. And the Quran also possesses the illuminating light that will erase and eliminate darkness of others in all places of life. فيكون المتدبر للقرآن الكريم فردا فعالا ولبنة قوية في صرح المجتمع. The person who reflects on the Quran on his own or her own will become a practical, strong brick, as a metaphor, a strong brick that will, build their society. يعود على الناس جميعا, or يعود على الناس جميعا. And this person's reflection of the Quran will affect all those around him. ولقد أدرك الإمام ابن القيم هذا المعنى وتلك الأهمية حين قال فلا شيء أنفع للقلب من قراءة القرآن بالتدبر والتفكر. Then he quotes Imam Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah again in another book of his, مفتاح دار السعادة, مفتاح دار السعادة لولاية العلم والإرادة, I believe is the full title. But anyway, in that book he says فلا شيء أنفع للقلب من قراءة القرآن بالتدبر والتفكر. There is nothing more beneficial to the heart than to recite the Quran with contemplation and reflection. فإنه جامع لجميع منازل السائرين, because the Quran contains all of the different spiritual levels of those who journey to Allah. And the quote continues, but it just shows us that there is no desired good state, be it in our action, inward or outward, except Allah addressed it in the Quran. And when a person reflects upon it, and they acquire the positive good qualities, and they avoid the blameworthy evil qualities, then that is all achieved through their implementation of the Quran. Then the authors say, كما أنه لا شيء أنفع للعبد في معاشه ومعاده وأقرب إلى نجاته من تدبر القرآن. There's nothing more beneficial for the slave of Allah in their life or their worldly, needs, or in their hereafter, that is more successful in saving one from the punishment of Allah than reflecting on the Quran. وإطالة التأمل, and elongating one's contemplation of the Quran. وجمع فيه الفكر على معاني آياته, and critically thinking and actively thinking and contemplating upon its verses. فإنها تطلع العبد على معالم الخير because the Quran is what shows a person upon the stages of goodness, and also how to avoid its evil entirely. وتتل في يده مفاتيح كنوز السعادة والعلوم النافعة. And through the Quran, a person will have in their hand the keys to the treasures of success and beneficial knowledge or sciences. وتثبت قواعد الإيمان في قلبه, and the Quran will reinforce the foundations and principles of faith in one's heart. وتشيد ببنيانه وتوطد أركانه. And then from those foundational principles, it will build their faith and pillars. وتوريه سورة الدنيا والآخرة والجنة والنار في قلبه. And it will show him the reality of this world and hereafter, and Jannah and Jahannam, heaven and hell, in their own heart. وتحضره بين الأمم, and it will show him or her the different nations of those that preceded us, the ummahs that followed different prophets and their stories. وتريه أيام الله فيهم, and it will show thee, it's a metaphor the Quran uses, أيام Allah, the days of Allah, where how Allah gave victory to the people of truth and how Allah destroyed the people of falsehood. وتبصره مواقع العبر, and it will show the person many examples of wisdom and learning from previous nations' decisions. وتشهده عدل الله وفضله, it will show him the justice of Allah and his bounty. وتعرفه ذاته أسماءه وصفاته وفعاله, and the Quran will familiarize one with the essence of Allah, their Lord, and His beautiful names and attributes and actions. وما يحبه وما يبغضه, what Allah loves and dislikes or hates. وصراطه الموصل إليه, and the path that will lead one to Allah. وما لسالكيه بعد الوصول والقدوم عليه, what will give the one who travels to Allah after they reach Him in their spiritual journey. وقواطع الطريق وآفاتها, and also the dangers of the path that one traverses to get to Allah spiritually, and how a person can be detoured or misled along that way. وتعرفه النفس وصفاتها, and the Quran makes one familiar with their soul or their ego and its qualities. ومفسدات الأعمال ومصححاتها, and what are the evil actions and what are the correct actions. وتعرفه طريق أهل الجنة, it will make him familiar with the path of the people of heaven, وأهل النار, and the people of the hellfire. وأعمالهم, and their actions. وأحوالهم, and their conditions. وسيماهم, and their signs, how you can witness their signs. ومراتب أهل السعادة وأهل الشقاوة, and the stages of the people of success and misfortune. وأقسام الخلق واجتماعهم فيما يجتمعون فيه وافتراقهم فيما يفترقون فيه, and the different classes and categories of the creation and how they are, similar and unison in some ways, and also what separates them and distinguishes them from each other. This was a long quote from Tadbir again. Then they say that وَإِذَا تَحَقَّقَ التَّدَبُّرُ فِي تِلَاوَةِ الْقُرْآنِ الْكَرِيمِ فَلَا تَزَالُ مَعَانِيهِ تنهض العبد إلى ربه بالوعد الجميل. That when the tadabbur has been done correctly and accurately and reflecting on the Quran, on its end meaning, and using one's heart and mind to see the meanings of the Quran, then فلا تزال معانيه تنهض العبد إلى ربه بالوعد الجميل. Then the meanings of this Quran will not cease until they take a slave to their Lord with his beautiful promise, which I believe is implying Jannah. وتحذره وتخويفه بوعيده من العذاب الوبيل. And the meanings of the Quran, when one contemplates on them, it will warn him or her and make them fear the punishment of Allah that has been destined for those who commit certain sins. وتبعثه على الازدياد من النعم بشكر ربه الجليل. And contemplating on the words of the Quran, it will increase one in the blessings of Allah and thanking Him for His multitude of blessings. وتبصره بحدود الحلال والحرام. And contemplating on the Quran will also make one clearly see the laws related to what is lawful, permissible, halal, and what is prohibited and unlawful, haram. وتوقفه عليها لئلا يتعداها فيقع في العناء الطويل. And a person should not, once they contemplate on the Quran, they should it will make them cautious so that they do not fall into the unlawful, so that they may fall into extreme sin and also blame. وتثبت قواعد الإيمان في قلبه. And the Quran, once again, it reinforces the principles of Iman in one's heart. وتشيد بنيانه, and it solidifies the building or structure of the religion, and it strengthens their heart. And وحياء وسعة وانشراحا وبهجة وسرور. It gives life to the heart, it expands it, and it gives it happiness and joy. فيصير في شأن الناس في شأن آخر والناس في شأن آخر. This person will be in a blissful life, while other people will be in a miserable life. That they will not have a similar life to others because they are living in the realm of the Quran. وعليه فينبغي لتارئ القرآن الكريم أن يكون شأنه الخشوع والتدبر والخضوع, فهذا هو المقصود المطلوب الذي تنشرح به الصدور وتستنير القلوب. And then the summary or conclusion before we get into the different kinds of tadabbur is that it is suitable and desired from the one who recites the noble Quran that they should be humble and dutiful, and they should reflect upon the Quran. And this is the desired objective of why the Quran was revealed, and through it, it will expand one's chest and enlighten their heart. فلو علم الناس ما في قراءة القرآن الكريم بالتدبر لاشتغلوا بها عن كل ما سواها. He says that if all of humanity really knew what truly exists in reading the Quran with contemplation, they would become busy with that and leave off everything else. فإذا قرأ بتفكر حتى إذا مر بآية وهو محتاج إليه في شفاء قلبه كررها ولو 100 مرة. Then he says that if he read the Quran, or just one verse of the Quran with contemplation, and he is in need of curing the sicknesses of the heart, he would repeat that one verse even up to 100 times, or for a whole night, ولو ليلة. فقراءة آية بتفكر والتفاهم وتدبر خير من قراءة ختمة بغير تدبر وتفاهم. And they said that reading just one verse of the Quran while contemplating on its meaning and reflecting upon it is better than reading the whole Quran without any reflection or contemplation. وأنفع للقلب وأدعى إلى حصول الإيمان وذوق حلاوة القرآن الكريم. And this contemplation of just one ayah is more beneficial to the heart and understanding, is more beneficial to the heart and closer into increasing one's iman and tasting the sweetness of the Quran. فقراءة القرآن الكريم بالتفكر هي أصل صلاح القلب. That reciting the Quran with contemplation, it is the basis for rectifying one's heart. So all of that was the importance of reflecting on the Quran. The next section is أنواع تدبر القرآن الكريم, the different kinds or categories of تدبر on the Quran. So number one, they said that تدبر القرآن الكريم لمعرفة صدق ما جاء به وأنه حق من عند الله تعالى. That the first, or maybe the most important category of contemplating on the Quran is to understand its authenticity and who is the one who brought it, who is the one who revealed it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed it to Angel Jibreel to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to realize that it is truth that came to us from Allah the Exalted. This is a quote from a book by the name مفهوم التدبر لتحرير وتأصيل, and is written by Khalid ibn Uthman as-Sabt. So anyway, that's the first stage, that nobody can contemplate on the Quran and its true meaning unless they believe in its authenticity and its divinity, and that it is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has been protected and verbatim until the end of time. وذلك أن الله تعالى نعى على المنافقين إعراضهم عن طاعة الرسول الكريم صلى الله عليه وسلم حيث قال. So then he gives an example of this from Surah An-Nisa, that the hypocrites, Allah quotes them, ويقولون الطاعة فإذا برزوا من عندك بيت طائفة منهم غير الذي تقول والله يكتب ما يبيتون فأعرض عنهم وتوكل على الله وكفى بالله وكيلا أفلا يتدبرون القرآن ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا. Allah, He says that the hypocrites, when they are with the Prophet, they claim obedience, but when they are in privacy amongst themselves, especially at night, they have hidden gatherings and meetings. Allah says that they engage in speech of that which they did not speak amongst you, O Prophet. And then Allah, He said He writes all that they spoke of by night. So Allah, He told the Prophet, turn away from them and trust in Allah, and Allah is sufficient as a trustee. And then Allah asks a question referring back to those hypocrites, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ, that would they not reflect and contemplate over the Quran? And then to show the Quran's authenticity, Allah, He said, وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. If this Quran was from other than Allah, you would find in it much inconsistencies. And then they quote Imam Ibn Qayyim again from another part of Madarij al-Salikin, وَمِنْ شَهَادَتِهِ أَيْضًا مَا أَوْدَعَهُ فِي قُلُوبِ عِبَادِهِ. And as for the authenticity of the Quran, it is, or what is necessitated in believing in it, is that which Allah had stored in the hearts of His servants, من التصديق الجازم واليقين الثابت, in firm conviction and resolve, والطمأنينة بكلامه ووحيه, and them finding rest and comfort in his speech and his revelation. ولهذا ندب الله عز وجل عباده إلى تدبر القرآن. And that's why Allah encouraged his servants to reflect on the Quran. فإن كل من تدبره أوجب له تدبره علما ضروريا ويقينا جازما. That all those who reflect on the Quran, it is necessary for them to do it with essential knowledge and with firm conviction that it is أنه حق وصدق, that it is truthful and honest. But أحق كل حق, it is the highest level of truth. وأصدق كل صدق, وأن الذي جاء به أصدق خلق الله وأبرهم وأكملهم علما وعملا ومعرفة. And to know the one that brought this Quran is the most honest and truthful of Allah's slaves, or of Allah's creation, and the most pious and the most knowledgeable and the most complete in knowledge, action, and recognition of Allah. So that was all. Number one was referring on the the first level of tadabbur is to reflect on the authenticity of the Quran and believing in it being preserved and truthful. Can everybody hear me now? Sorry, I realized maybe I wasn't clear. Is it clear now? Sorry, I don't know what changed. Okay, number two, تدبره للوقوف على عظاته والاعتبار بما فيه من القصص والأخبار, is to reflect on the Quran, on its expressions, and recognizing in that which is in it from its stories and narrations. وتعقل أمثاله المضروبة, and to understand the parables and examples that are presented forth in it. وما اشتمل عليه من الوعد والوعيد, and that which it contains from the promises of good for those who do good, and the promises of punishment for those who do evil. والترغيب والترهيب, and encouragement and tarheeb is like, to show one the evil outcomes of their sins. So Allah mentions both in the Quran. من أجل أن يراعي العبد فيستدرك ما وقع له من التقصير, so that the servant has some awareness as to what they will meet if they are negligent in their duty towards Allah. ويزداد من الإخبار والتشمير في طاعة الله, and then this will, at the same time when the reward is mentioned, it will increase them in their motivation towards doing the obedience of Allah. So that's number two. Number three is تدبره لاستخراج الأحكام منه, سواء كان ذلك مما يتصل بالحقائق أو الأعمال المتعلقة بالجوارح أو السلوك, إذا الأحكام تشمل ذلك كله, إذا الأحكام تشمل ذلك كله بمفهومها الأوسع. The third one is reflecting on the Quran to extract from it rulings, if that has to do with theology or actions related to the limbs, which would be fiqh, or the heart and the ruh, which would be suluk, because they said that these commandments encompass all of them in understanding in totality. Number four, تدبره للوقوف على وجوه فصاحته وبلاغته وإعجازه, to reflect on the Quran and to stop and at its amazing eloquence and rhetoric and miraculous language, وصروف خطابه, and how the address of Allah changes from audience to audience, واستخراج اللطائف اللغوية التي تستنبط من مضامين النص القرآني, and to extract subtle literary benefits. Okay, number 5. تدبره للتعرف على دروب المحاجة والجدال المخالفين. That to contemplate on the Quran, to recognize the different types of arguments and evidences that it presents to refute the claims of those who oppose it or oppose Islam. وأساليب الدعوة للناس على اختلاف أحوالهم, and the different styles of calling people to Islam in their different backgrounds and circumstances, وطرق التأثير على المخاطبين, and the different influences that the Quran has upon those it addresses. I'm sorry, this one I'm struggling to translate, but it all goes back to using reflection upon the Quran to refute other people's claims or misconceptions or doubts or misunderstandings. وسبل الإقناع التي تتضمنها القرآن الكريم, and the different approaches the Quran presents to have contentment on the truth. Number 6. تدبره من أجل الاستغناء به عن غيره سواء السنة النبوية المطهرة فإنها شارحة له. Number 6 is to reflect on the Quran, to be من أجل الاستغناء به عن غيره سوى السنة, to be able to reflect on the Quran for the sole purpose of it being independent on all those other than it, except the Sunnah, except the pure Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because فَإِنَّهَا شَارِحَةٌ لَهُ, because the Sunnah explains, or the Hadith explain the Quran. Then they quote Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah in Majmu' al-Fatawa, وَأَمَّا فِي بَابِ فَهْمِ الْقُرْآنِ, as for the subject of understanding the Quran, Ibn Taymiyyah says, فهو meaning the person who recites the Quran, دائم التفكر في معانيه والتدبر لألفاظه واستغنائه بمعاني القرآن وحكمه عن غيره من كلام الناس. That the person who reads the Quran should be perpetually engrossed in reflecting on the meanings of the Quran and its words, and that it is independent واستغنائه بمعاني القرآن, the independence of the meaning of the Quran, وحكمه عن غيره من كلام الناس, and the ruling of it from other than it. So meaning the Quran speaks for itself, or Allah, no speech is more superior to the speech of Allah in ruling and judgment from the speech of people. وإذا سمعوا شيئا من كلام الناس وعلومهم عرضه على القرآن فإن شهد له بالتزكية قبله وإلا رده. So then Imam Taymiyyah says, when any person hears speech from other people and their ideas and thoughts, then they should analyze it or examine it through what the Quran says. So if that person's speech is analogous with the Quran, he accepts it, or if not, then he rejects it. So that was number 6. Number 7. تدبره من أجل تليين القلب به وترقيقه وتحصيل الخشوع. Allah. Number 7 is to reflect on the Quran with the sole purpose to soften one's heart and to attain khushu'. Khushu' is humility, devotion. وَالْآيَاتُ الدَّالَةُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ كَثِيرَةٌ. And he says there's many different verses in the Quran that prove this. As for some of them is Allah نزل أحسن الحديث كتابا متشابها مثاني تقشعر منه جلود الذين يخشون ربهم ثم تلين جلودهم وقلوبهم إلى ذكر الله ذلك هدى الله يهدي به من يشاء ومن يضلل الله فما له من هاد. Allah says in verse 23 of Surah Zumar, Surah 39, Ayah 23, He says, Allah is the one who sent down the best hadith. So one of the names Allah gave Quran in the Quran is hadith. It is a book that mutashabiham mathani, that some of its verses resemble other verses in it. And then what is this, the benefit of it? Going back to this number 7 category from tadbur is to read the Quran to soften the heart. Allah Himself says that those who read the Quran and they have reverence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or their Lord, it literally gives them goosebumps. You know, sometimes you have like a revelation in the sense like you understood something and like the hair on your neck stands up, you get goosebumps. This is what happens to those who read the book of Allah with the, reverence of Allah. Then Allah, He says, then after this their, limbs and their hearts soften to the remembrance of Allah. Their skin and their hearts soften to the remembrance of Allah. That is the guidance Allah guides with whom He wills, and whoever Allah misguides, there is no guide for him. طيب. We're almost done, alhamdulillah. Actually, this is the last category and they mention other ayat, but because I'm in the masjid and what they're going to call Isha Adhan any time, I just wanted to let other people ask discussion question. I do not have any prepared discussion question, but the last one here, number 8, says تدبر القرآن من أجل امتثال والعمل بما فيه من أوامر واجتناب النواهي. To reflect on the Quran with the sole purpose of taking example and action in that which is in it from its commandments and avoiding its prohibitions or that which it has negated. And then they covered the ayah, Surah Baqarah, verse 121. Allah, He says that الذين آتيناهم الكتاب يتلونه حق تلاوته أولئك يؤمنون به ومن يكفر به فأولئك هم الخاسرون. Allah, He speaks of those companions like Abdullah bin Salam who were formerly people of the book and accepted Islam. Allah says those who gave the scripture, that they read it the way it deserved to be read. So He quotes Qatada rahimahullah, who is from the Tabi'un, that Ibn Mas'ud, the companion of the Prophet ﷺ and the faqih of Sahaba, he said, Wallahi in haqq tilawati an tuhilla halalahu tuharrim haramahu wa an taqra'a kama anzal Allah wa la tuharrif an mawadi'ih. The way of reading the Quran, or fulfilling the right of reading the Quran as the way it deserves to be read, he said, I swear by Allah, is to regard its lawful as halal, lawful, and to regard its haram and prohibited as prohibited, and to read it as Allah revealed it, and that you do not change any of its language or wording from its place. So this concludes what I prepared for today. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept this gathering and guide us and enable us to implement the best of speech with the best of action. And I'm just dropping my mic here, Anisa, you can take over, inshallah.